The following program is a production of Faith to Victory Ministries.
Welcome to Believer's Challenge, with minister and founder of Faith to Victory Ministries, Michael Collins. Now, here's Michael with this week's discussion.
On today's Believer's Challenge, we're going to be talking about disappointment and how it's one of those emotions that can lead us in a wrong direction and cause us to have a very wrong perception of what God is trying to accomplish in our lives. The Lord has His reasons for sometimes allowing us to be disappointed with the result or an outcome of a particular problem, situation, or circumstance that we've been praying about. What we need to realize is why God's different direction or questionable delayed response is a disappointment to us and why it causes us to be discouraged and left with the feeling of being let down by God. When we determine the why of our disappointment, we learn how to overcome it in the knowledge that our Father always knows what's best for us, especially when we don't have a clue. There are many examples in the Bible that explain how so many of God's chosen had to deal with disappointment and the feeling of an apparent abandonment by God. The Lord uses these examples to remind us that we all are going to face disappointment from time to time. We're all going to go through seasons of uncertainty, which, if we allow it, will rattle our confidence in our Father's ability to fulfill His promises and do what He says He can and will do. But His Word is His truth, and it gives us every necessary direction and instruction we need as to how we can recognize and overcome the sometimes overwhelming feeling of disappointment and keep our eyes, our minds, and our hearts focused on God's goodness, faithfulness, and perfect plan for our lives. In Exodus chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, Moses expressed his confusion and discouragement in the fact that God had done nothing but allow trouble to come upon the Israelites, since He sent him to Pharaoh to speak on his behalf. He was voicing his evident disappointment in the fact that God had allowed nothing but trouble to come upon these people, and apparently wasn't doing anything about it to rescue them. In the 6th chapter, in verses 9 through 12, Moses questioned God once more in regard as to the purpose of it. But we all know from this story that God did indeed rescue and deliver His people out of Egypt, and used Moses in a way that he would have never imagined. Isn't that how we look at things in our life? We see the problem, doubt the resolution because of the obstacles and the impossibility that we perceive, and then question God as to why He is allowing this to happen to us, wondering why He hasn't done anything about it. Then our Father always comes through, keeping His word and delivering us out of our trouble so that He might be glorified through our deliverance. Jesus Himself questioned His Father at the peak of His suffering and pain on the cross, although He knew the reason for it all. If there was ever a human moment that Jesus wanted to show about Himself for all of us to learn about feeling disappointed and abandoned, it was when He asked the Father, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why did Jesus say such a thing? Well, it was at that point that the Son was separated from the Father, and He was separated for our sake. In order for prophecy to be fulfilled and for all of us to be reconciled to the Father had to turn away from His Son. It was at that moment that Jesus bore all of the sin of the world and mankind for all generations to come. From these examples, which are only a few out of many throughout the Bible, the Lord wants us to understand and remember that He sometimes allows a time of suffering, pain, disappointment, and discouragement in our lives. But this is not to be perceived as an abandonment to our condition. Instead, God wants us to know Him well enough to accept it as a time of refinement, a time of discipline and nurturing from a Father who loves us more than we could ever comprehend. When we realize and accept our Father's capacity for love, as well as His reasons for showing His love in ways that we won't always understand, we'll be better equipped to handle disappointment and keep moving forward in our faith and never take a step back. This has been Believer's Challenge, and I'm Michael Collins for Faith to Victory Ministry saying, be blessed Be encouraged. Keep moving forward. And remember, where there's faith, there will be victory. Have a blessed day.
For more daily inspiration and encouragement from Faith to Victory Ministries, find us on Facebook, Google+, and YouTube.
You're listening to the FTV Radio Network.